Okay, everyone, welcome back from our 5-minute break. If I can have you turn to page 41. And actually, yes, please scroll through this form. This is the project timeline form. Perfect. So if I could have you please go back to page 40. And on page 40, these are the instructions on how to fill out the project timeline form that was just shown. Please be sure to only complete the tasks that specifically pertain to your project. For items that are not applicable, please indicate NA instead of deleting them. For example, if you are doing a development project, you would not be required to complete the first 2 tasks on the form because they both deal with acquisition. So you would simply indicate NA in these 2 boxes. The project timeline involves working with other agencies with approval responsibilities. Past grantees and other programs have been surprised, for example, at how long a certain permit can take. This form assists with identifying the estimated time period to complete each task, ensures the timeline is reasonable, and accounts for potential unforeseen circumstances. Each agency name and contact should be identified on the form. Any potential delays and/or issues should be noted in the last column on the form. The form must also be signed by your authorized representative. If I can have you please turn to page 43. Perfect. And so this checklist item is applicant capacity. The top paragraphs give background about the purpose of this requirement. Responses to numbers 1 through 4 on page 43 will be used to identify the applicant's capacity to not only complete the project, but to also ensure that there is adequate operation and maintenance for 30 years. If the applicant could please respond to the 4 questions on this page, including previous park and/or construction projects, annual operations and maintenance costs of the proposed project, operations and maintenance funding sources, and a web link to the applicant's current park inventory. Please use the chat feature if you have any questions about the timeline form or applicant capacity. We will now move on to the CEQA compliance certification form. If I could have you turn to page 45, where we could take a quick look at the form. Perfect. So this is the CEQA compliance certification form. And if I could have you turn to the previous page, 44. And this lists the instructions for the form. So the 2 documents that we require for CEQA is that CEQA compliance certification form that we just looked at. And we will also need a copy of the notice of exemption or notice of determination that has been filed or stamped by the county clerk. The notice of exemption or notice of determination must cover the project scope. For development projects, the CEQA document must allow for construction. For acquisition projects, a notice of exemption to acquire the property is required. Upon close of escrow, the applicant can begin CEQA analysis for construction, which will then be due 6 months after the close of escrow. For projects on federal land, the applicant should check with the federal land manager for the appropriate NEPA compliance information. The goal is to complete the CEQA requirement at the time of application or within 3 months after the application deadline. If CEQA is not complete by November 5th, please provide an explanation of what the next steps will be in order to complete the CEQA Notice of Exemption or Notice of Determination. Please use the chat feature if you have any questions regarding CEQA. I will now hand it back over to Nikki.